Keanu Reeves stepping back into the action hero known as John Wick for the latest edition, nearly 3 hours long this time. Let's talk about John Wick Chapter 4. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for John Wick Chapter 4. Yes, this is a spoiler-free review. I try to do that with all my new movie reviews. We are going to talk in vague tones about the plot here, but I'll get into some specifics about how the action looks on screen and does it justify its nearly 3-hour runtime. We'll talk about all of this in just a second here. But first, I want to welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We've got tons of great movie and TV reviews for you to check out. And if you want to subscribe down below there, that would be awesome too. Would love to have you aboard in that capacity, or like this video, comment as well. All that stuff does help the channel out. So, all right, this is the fourth installment of the John Wick franchise, the sort of the little action franchise that could, right? The first John Wick started pretty modestly. I mean, it had an okay run at the box office, but this is an example of a movie that just, the legend grew on subsequent cable viewings and word of mouth, and at the time people were still really buying and renting DVDs, so that I think helped out a lot as well. And then Chapter 2 was really a big hit, and then Chapter 3 probably about the same, and then this one, biggest opening yet, over $70 million just for the opening weekend of John Wick Chapter 4. So everyone, is really loving this. And all of these movies, for the most part, get pretty good reviews. I've been on the fence, to be honest, about specifically the last one. Chapter 2, I liked enough. They've all gotten positive grades from me, but Chapter 3, I didn't think did enough to set itself apart from some of the other chapters in the franchise. But this one, number 4, oh, it does, for sure. So in the vaguest notion of the plot here, basically, John Wick is out to defeat the High Table and those who left him for dead in the previous installment. But before he earns his freedom, or before he can even attempt to earn his freedom, I should say, he has to face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe and turn old friends into foes. We have a few people in this movie that we've seen before in some installments of the Wick franchise, including Lawrence Fishburne, and in one of his final roles, Lance Reddick, who just passed away a couple of weeks ago. Very sad, gone way too soon. But he was in a lot of great TV shows and movies, but I think most may be associated with, Fringe was a great TV show, but I think he's probably most at this point associated with the John Wick films. So this will be, his final ride, obviously, in the Wick world. I think maybe he has 1 or 2 movies, coming out after this. But in any event, we have some newcomers as well, including Donnie Yen and Bill Skarsgård, that really add some fun and excitement to this movie. All right, so when I heard that this was going to be a nearly 3-hour movie, I'll be honest, I wasn't feeling it, because, like I said, I didn't think the third one, it was sort of a sliding scale. I think the first one is really good. I think the second one is pretty good, and then I think the third one is just kind of above average. This one, though, I'll be honest, is probably the best of the whole series, and I think the first one is very good, but boy, oh boy, this one just blew me away. So let's talk about why this franchise as a whole, but specifically this movie too, has captivated people. And I think there's a sort of thought process on kind of, I don't want to call it a dumb action movie, because I don't think the Wick movies are dumb action movies. But action is not one of my favorite genres, just in general, because I think a lot of them are kind of just, okay, let's shoot them up, and what's the body count, and let's, the quips, Arnold Schwarzenegger doing the bits, and Sylvester Stallone doing the quips and stuff, and Expendables kind of stuff. It just doesn't appeal to me necessarily. I can recognize a good one when it's out there, and I think there's certainly some great examples of really good action movies, and I think there's a lot of movies you could consider action that also, skew into other things, like The Matrix, for example, another Keanu Reeves, franchise. Obviously, that's probably more in the science fiction category, but tons of action, right? But, I think about things like Fast and Furious, which have long overstayed their welcome. The Taken movies or any of the recent Neeson movies, long overstayed their welcome. John Wick, though, when I heard 3 hours, I was like, I don't know what I'm getting into here. But I will say there were a few parts where it was a lot of action, and I'm like, okay, we get it. We can move on from this, because I would prefer more character development and stuff, and I get that. But people come to these movies for the action sequences, right? So, okay, whereas I might be a little bit kind of, all right, let's move this part along. Let's get to the next location, or get to the next, foe that he has to fight off, or whatever. But people come to these movies for those action sequences. So I'm not going to really fault it for that, even though I personally thought maybe you could have trimmed 10 minutes off the movie in that capacity. But there's no denying that the Wick action sequences are unlike almost any other in sort of big blockbuster films. Yeah, there's probably some, like in the martial arts universe, which I don't really get into, but where they craft these really well choreographed fight sequences, and there's not a lot of like camera tricks where you're like not knowing where the action is or who's punching who or whatever. I hate that. In an action movie, I like to know who's doing what to whom, and with what body part, and that kind of thing. And this director here has directed all four of the Wick movies. Chad Stahelski, something like that. Now, the writer of this movie is actually co-written by Shay Hatton and Michael Finch. They did not write any of the other Wick movies. The same gentleman wrote the first three installments. But we do have the same director here, and I think this is something that sets the Wick movies apart, is the beautiful action, choreography, fight sequences, all of that kind of stuff. So that's one thing I think that really sets the franchise apart. But another one for sure is the set pieces. Oh my God. A lot of these action movies just will have like a big car chase or something. Okay, maybe there's some buildings that get demolished or whatever. And look, in that action vein, I do think like Marvel movies, sure, you could consider those action movies. I sort of put them in a superhero category. So I don't know. I love those kind of things, so I'm not really saying anything about that. But the set pieces in these Wick movies, and specifically this one, because there's a lot of different locations, but it comes in the whole franchise. But specifically, it was very noticeable in this movie. I don't know if they maybe went to a few extra locations or whatever, but the set design, the set pieces are just so interesting to look at. You don't see much like it out there in other action movies. And so I have to give it props for that. And with that sort of is the lighting aspect of it as well. And just the way that these movies are directed, it sets them completely apart. Now, Keanu Reeves, I think he's a great guy. He's obviously one of Hollywood's, one of the favorites of Hollywood, and one of the favorite Hollywood people out there. He's very giving and whatever. But I think he is kind of an average actor. I think he kind of stays in some lanes. He's tried other things over the years, I think with some mixed results. But, you get into Neo from The Matrix. You get into, the Bill and Ted movies, or Speed, where he's not required to really say that much. And oh my God, talk about the strong silent type. The John Wick character is, if he says 10 pages of dialogue in the 3-hour movie, I would be floored. Most of what he says is like one or two words at a clip. It's perfect for this character, and to be honest, I think it's well within the Keanu Reeves wheelhouse. I think he's a great guy, but I think his acting is okay. But when he gets these roles like a Neo or like a Wick, that he can really match his sort of Keanu Reeves energy with, it's a perfect mix. And I think that's what we get here in spades. And because it is, sort of this fourth movie, he knows this character, I think, inside and out, certainly more than we even know him. And then adding the Donnie Yen character, and I won't even go into, what is going on with him, but that's a fantastic performance from Donnie Yen, and the two of them play off each other very well. So look, I'm not positive that it justifies being 2 hours and 49 minutes. But I think it comes to an incredibly thrilling conclusion. Other than those few times when the fight scenes were going on a little long, and I was like, okay, let's move this along to the next thing. I can't really trim much else from it. I can't say I was ever bored other than that. And that's sort of why most people come to these movies. And if nothing else, even though I was like, okay, a little bit bored, maybe, it was still gorgeous to look at. And the directing was great. So look, at the end of the day here, we're going to grade this. I think this is probably the best movie I've seen so far this year. I have not given any A pluses or A's. I've given a few A minuses, I think maybe 2 so far this year. I'm going to leave John Wick Chapter 4 currently with an A minus. But I debated giving this one an A. It could make it up there before the end of the year for me, but I'm just not positive it justified the length. But it definitely is, I think, the best one of the series. One is very, very good. I believe I gave that a B plus upon the initial viewing, and then the second one was a B, the third one was a B minus. So we've been going incrementally down. This one, though, I think it's the best of the bunch. A minus for sure, maybe even a little bit higher by the end of the year. We'll see. All right, so that will do it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.